What up, what up? You are listening to the bonus episode of Nate's Notes. I am Nate Jones, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Griffin Schuler. How are you doing on this bonus episode day?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm really excited about our topic today. So we reached out to our fans on Facebook, and we asked, what do you guys want to hear from us this week for the bonus episode? And resoundingly, you guys said the Olympics. And so we're going to talk a lot about the Olympics today. And so let's just start off, Griffin. What's your kind of Olympic story? How did you get into Olympics, and what do you know about the Olympics?
Honestly, the Olympics was always something that, I just never really grew up watching. I would only tune in for summer games. I'd never really watch winter games. And during the summer games, I'd really just watch, the most popular sports, what I thought were the most popular sports. Always watching Usain Bolt run the 100 meters in track, and then watching Michael Phelps do his thing in the swimming pool. Those were kind of like the two GOATs of their time and their event.
Yeah.
I would try and tune in for that, but really just outside of that, I just did not tune in at all. How about you? What was your relationship with the Olympics growing up?
Yeah, so I always loved the Olympics. A lot of times is an excuse to stay up later than my bedtime. I remember specifically I was allowed to watch Apollo Ono speed skating. I believe he won a bronze medal in that one. And so that kind of, before that, I was kind of just casual viewer of the Olympics. Mm-hmm. If it was on, I would watch it. Michael Phelps for sure, especially when he was really getting going. But 2008 is kind of the first year I remember really being involved in the Olympics and wanting to watch every event, and was really invested in it. And then all the way to 2016, I was really invested, and then it just, college kind of got in the way, and it was less of a forefront. But I definitely followed the track and field events a lot as a former runner. I really like the marathon. Marathon running always fascinates me.
Interesting.
And so that's really fun for me to watch. All the long distance, Mo Farah, Galen Rupp, all those guys, I really love following them. So that's kind of where I like that, and of course basketball. If you guys have listened to the show, I'm a pretty big basketball fan, so there's no surprise there. But I'm not as invested as I kind of was leading up to 2012. I was really invested. I was following everything. I tried to watch everything because I think NBC had just come out with their Olympic app where you could watch every event. Uh-huh. And so I was like, I'm going to watch everything. And I definitely tried, but I don't know if I succeeded. But luckily, we're not the only two here talking about the Olympics. As you can tell so far, we're not the experts on the Olympics. So we brought in Nate's Notes Olympic expert, Holly Lind, in with us today to talk about the Olympics, her Olympic story, why she loves the Olympics, and a little bit more about the Olympics that we probably don't know. And so we're excited to learn a lot. How are you doing today, Holly?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show, guys. I have been an avid listener since your guys' beginning, so I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And
yeah, well, we're super happy to have you here. As we know, you know a lot more about the Olympics than we do. What's kind of your relationship with the Olympic movement?
Yeah, so I've been an absolute Olympic freak since I have been 4 years old. I've been absolutely obsessed. I've been following since the Sydney Games. When I was 4 years old, my mom had a catering business that she had.
What year was that?
So it'd be the 2000 Games.
Okay.
And so my mom owned a catering business, and so she was making this beautiful wedding cake, and it was super hot, and in the Midwest it gets really humid, so this wedding cake was melting, and I remember she was just like, go watch some TV and stay out of the kitchen for a little bit. And I watched the opening ceremonies of the Sydney Games, and from there I was absolutely hooked. As a 4-year-old, I didn't really know what was going on a lot of the time, but just seeing the athletes and kind of the feats that they did was amazing to me, and from there I was hooked. From there, I kind of continued to follow the Olympics, and in between each of the game years, I'd follow the sports individually to see who was kind of going to be the up-and-coming athletes. And then eventually, I wanted to see if maybe I had what it took to become an Olympian. I joined a junior Olympic archery team.
That's interesting. Not really a sport that most people, I think, would look toward to try.
Yeah, for sure. My mom and I decided to join this summer camp one year, and the guy that was running it said, hey, like, you're kind of good at this. Let's see if we can maybe make you a more elite athlete at this. And so joined a junior Olympic team in the Midwest in Minnesota. And from there, I competed at a few, regional tournaments and, met some really amazing athletes and coaches. And from there, it grew my passion. When I turned 18, I decided to go the college route instead of continuing as an athlete, but still to this day, an absolute passionate about the Olympics, and I cannot get enough of it for sure.
Nice. Do you have anything that you wanted to add?
No, that's very interesting. I had a friend who was into archery a lot growing up, and he, for one of his birthday parties, he took us to try to teach us archery, and it is very difficult. And it doesn't look as difficult, but it is very difficult. So that's awesome that you were so invested in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to teach you guys one day if you're interested.
Well, I'm super interested right now. Do you want to kind of go into depth on what did it take to become a junior national level at the for your sport? I mean, in archery, like what does it entail for practices? What are some of the things that you have to work on to become the best of the best?
Yeah, so on the Junior Olympic Archery development team, it was basically a lot of kids that were interested, whether they wanted to, continue to see if they had what it took for the Olympics, or maybe just a way to meet new kids. So I would say that it definitely taught me a lot of discipline, a lot of, what it took to become that. When I became in high school and I was on the team, I actually took college classes so that way I could spend my days practicing. So that way I could, see if I had what it took. And so by the time, I graduated all these college credits, which was really nice, as well as I had a lot of practice time as well. So you shoot hundreds of arrows a day, honestly, and it's just getting that muscle memory and getting that repetition. My coach was fortunate enough to be able to sit with me during the day and during these practices, and he's an amazing coach, and definitely someone that helped me progress my Olympic passion, not just within archery but just within everything that the Olympics stand for. So
who's your coach? Do you want to give him a shout out?
So his name was Doug Jones. He was absolutely amazing. His family is very involved in the archery community. His son was getting on the elite level, and then his daughter also participated in some regional tournaments, and his son did as well. And then he did a lot of coaching as well as some archery on his own.
Excellent. So you were clearly invested. Did you ever succeed? Did you ever win any of your tournaments or anything like that?
Nothing too crazy, just some local Minnesota tournaments. I placed like second, I think, one time, and was ranked first at one point or another. So
that's awesome.
Sweet.
That's not something a lot of people can say about any sport that they're involved in.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Well, moving on. So we'll get back to the bigger picture. Have you ever been to an Olympics by chance?
Yeah, I actually was able to go to the Rio de Janeiro 2016 Summer Olympic Games. Okay. Absolutely amazing games. Got to see track and field, diving, gymnastics, the marathon, weightlifting. So a lot of really cool, diverse sports. I didn't get to see archery, but got to see a lot of really cool sports, and it was an absolutely amazing experience for me.
That's incredible. I've certainly always wanted to go to Rio. What about you, Nate?
Yeah, I've always wanted to go to Olympic game. I think at one point I said I was going to go to Rio, but then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I can't. I don't have money for that. It costs money. What do you think, sporting events, people love sporting events. What do you think makes the Olympics so much different? The vibe is probably people are excited about watching the sports, but what do you think makes the Olympics so much different than any other sporting event?
That's a great question. I would say that it's really cool to see country, especially the host country, come together. So when I went to Rio, you definitely saw a lot of that culture, a lot of that passion come out of these citizens that were there. Okay. And it was absolutely amazing. You had people dancing in the streets and their music all over the place. And, at the events, it was very colorful. And I left kind of getting a very small sliver, because I'm sure I didn't get to see all of Rio, but just a very firm understanding of, the Brazilian people, and I thought that was very interesting and a very eye-opening experience. So I feel that the Olympic Games provides that experience for anyone that goes to any country. You get to experience someone else's culture and see how passionate they are of them.
Very cool.
Would you say you're able to experience more than just the host country's culture because there's so many different nations being represented at the games? Did you find that a lot of the other countries had some big passionate fan bases there supporting them?
Absolutely. The memory that sparks in my mind right away is I went to the men's 100-meter final, and so obviously Usain Bolt was in there and he won it.
That was his last race, wasn't it?
Yep, his last 100-meter race. He still had the relay the next day.
Yep.
But I was fortunate enough to sit in a section with a lot of Jamaican people.
Ooh.
And so they had these flags and they were chanting and singing these songs, and after he had won, he came over to the front of our section and he was waving at them and pointing at them.
That's
so
super cool.
That is so cool.
It was cool to see, they were, like I said, singing their songs and chanting and doing these really awesome things, and very passionate about their culture as well. So yes, you do get to see a little bit of everyone's culture, and then obviously, Team USA comes out and represents, and I was out there trying to represent our culture. It was, chanting for our own teammates as well. So
that's very cool.
Nice. Did you, Rio's a pretty cool city to begin with, without having the Olympics there in the backyard. Did you get to kind of enjoy, life outside of the Olympics in Rio de Janeiro?
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough that my college roommate was from Rio, so I got to stay with her family, and her sister showed me around the city, and we got to, experience their culture of dancing and some of their nightlife, and then as well as going to see the Christ the Redeemer statue and the Sugarloaf Mountains. And so just getting to see that side of the culture with a guide was very helpful. So it was a good experience for sure.
Yeah. Do you recommend others follow in your footsteps?
Yeah.
Either to Rio or to an Olympic Games?
Absolutely. I mean, if you're going to Rio, I would definitely encourage a guide, just because they do know those small restaurants on the side that maybe you would get off the main streets. But yeah, and the Olympics, I think, is an amazing experience, just to not only support your own team country, but also to see other cultures and get to experience. And being there is a feeling you can't even express with words. It's a one of a kind feeling for sure.
Wow, you're selling me on this right now. I always think about, or when I think back to the Rio Olympics specifically, I remember kind of the controversy with the safety issue. Since you went there, I mean, you could speak firsthand. Did you feel safe while you were there? Because in retrospect, Rio's got some pretty sketchy, dangerous areas. But did it help to have kind of the whole world watching and participating? Did you feel safe while you were there?
Yeah, I personally felt safe. I walked on the streets by myself during the day, obviously. Just being kind of street smart, I think, is kind of the caution I would use. As I mentioned, since my roommate lived there, I was never really alone, and having a local there was definitely beneficial to know where is the safest area. And then absolutely during the game, security is high maximum the whole time. There was armed guards on the majority of the streets, as well as just people that you could go up to. They had Rio shirts on, and you could go up to them and ask them any question. They spoke a variety of languages, and they would be able to help you in any capacity that you needed. So I personally felt safe while I was there, and didn't have any scary experiences.
That's good to hear. Nate, do you have anything to add? Any questions you want to ask about when Holly was at the Olympics in Rio?
Yeah, so when you're in Rio, do you think you were able to immerse more in the Brazilian culture because your roommate was from Rio de Janeiro?
Absolutely, 100%. It was her family like cooked me a lot of Brazilian foods.
Okay.
Like I said, we got to enjoy some of the nightlife, so we went
Yeah.
to some like clubs and did some Brazilian dancing, which was super fun, and got to experience some of like those off the main road
Okay.
restaurants. So I do believe I got maybe a different experience than someone that went down there and just went to like a local hotel on the beach.
Yeah.
So yeah,
What was one of your favorite meals that you had while you were there?
Brigadeiro for sure.
Okay.
So
What was that?
Brigadeiro. So it's think of it like a chocolate fudge.
Okay.
And they can become
Think of chocolate fudge.
it comes in kind of like a truffle form.
Okay.
Mainly, but Brigadeiro, you can get it like at Starbucks in like your Frappuccino. I remember I got it while I was there, or my roommate made it in like a giant bowl because I was obsessed with it, and so I just ate this Brigadeiro right out of a bowl.
That's very cool.
So that was definitely something I'd recommend if you go there.
Awesome. Well, we can continue on. We can tell you're passionate. You're just firing through these questions. So I've got a question here for you. It's a little more personal. What does the Olympic movement mean to you specifically?
That's a great question. So I kind of mentioned that I enjoy seeing the other. I enjoy seeing cultures come together. You know, it doesn't matter what your background is. You know, you come and you support. You know, your Team USA or wherever you're from. You know, it's kind of interesting. I noticed that while at the women's national World Cup team that happened a few days ago.
Yeah.
Just like how hyped everyone was. It didn't matter where you came from, what your political
You're
party
talking
is.
about the soccer matches that are going on?
Mm-hmm, the World Cup game, during the France game, you know, everyone just came together and was supporting them. So
Yep.
it's awesome to see that for, you know, the Olympics and the Paralympic Games that, you know, people come together no matter what and support around a common goal.
Yeah, I guess you brought it up. We didn't really touch on the Paralympic Games. So, from my knowledge, and this wasn't always the case, but because I learned this somewhat recently in the last few years, but the Paralympic Games always are hosted in the same city as the Olympic Games, and they always take place a week, 2 weeks afterwards.
I think every year is a little different as far as like how much duration is in between because
Okay.
the city has to accommodate you know
city's different.
Paralympic athletes as well as you know being able to accommodate another whole world basically.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's usually about I think it was a week or 8 days after in Rio, but
Okay.
yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it makes me think about recently the U.S. Olympic Committee just did a press release saying that they're going to change their official name to United States Olympic Paralympic Committee to kind of show that inclusion of the para side of sport, which I think is super awesome. I think that's something that should have been done, you know, a while ago. It's one of those things where it makes so much sense now. It's like, why didn't we do this sooner as a country? But I thought that was a relevant piece of information to throw in there because it sounds like, you know, we're starting to be more inclusive from a sports perspective to all sorts of athletes. Because para-athletes normally have different disabilities, and from what I know, they have different classes of disabilities. So, like, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe like there's different levels of blindness or different levels of deafness, and so on. And so there's different kind of categories of. Is that correct?
Yep, you're on the right track. So yeah, so there's different classes depending on your sport. Will put you into different classes. So if you're a blind athlete, you're going to participate against other blind athletes. You know, if you're you know, or like you mentioned, deaf, like you're going to go against other deaf athletes. So it's just again creating a more inclusive environment and you know, creating that, you know, fairness, and also being able to have those athletes participate because they're absolutely amazing and they definitely deserve to be on the world scale for sure.
Yeah, I've recently been able to come across watching some of the para athletes perform their sport, and it's super cool. They're just as go-getting as the other athletes in the Olympic Games. So, you know, hopefully as a nation, more people start to recognize that and are able to watch both games and give both athletes the appreciation that they deserve.
Absolutely.
So one of my next questions here is, what's your favorite games that you've either witnessed on television, or we can include Rio in there, but if Rio's just like way above the others because you were there, then we'll just exclude that one and you can give us your favorite one that you've witnessed.
I mean, obviously Rio's going to be my favorite just because I was there. But as far as watching, I would say I really enjoyed the London games. That was the first games that I had watched the large majority of the events and was able to, the backstory of a lot of the athletes, and so be able to follow a lot of them. So I would say London, but that's so hard to choose. It's like trying to pick your favorite child. Like, that's so difficult.
It's a decent analogy there.
Yeah.
Most people can't. Some people are very quick about it. Okay, so the London Games. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So maybe rephrasing the question. So what Olympic moment, so from any time, and this can kind of be for everyone, what one would you like to witness? Whether it be on TV, being there, so I'll go first. For example, I would have loved to be able to watch the 1992 Dream Team, the men's basketball team. All the stories, all the documentaries about it. It's one of the coolest moments, I think, in basketball history, and then a pretty cool Olympic moment as well. So what would be yours, Holly?
The Miracle on Ice game for sure.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one.
Being from Minnesota, I am a hockey fan for sure. And since there's a lot of Minnesotans on that team, I would definitely go back to the game. I actually have a signed puck by Dave Christensen.
Oh.
And so.
Can you explain who Dave Christensen is?
He was on the Miracle on Ice team. I believe he got an assist during the game.
Very cool.
And so that would definitely be the moment I go back.
Viewers, I knew who he was on the team.
So Griffin always says.
The listeners. Okay, now since you stole mine, I'll try and come up with a different one. I was kind of in between the Dream Team and the Miracle on Ice. I think being able to witness what Michael Phelps did in, what year was it? Help me out here. Where he won all 8 gold medals that he participated in. Or actually, what? Another standout moment to me is when Shaun White got that. I think it was a perfect 100 score. Now I can't recall if it was X Games or if it was the Olympics.
Oh my goodness.
But Shaun White getting a gold medal, I think, would have been something that I would have liked to see live.
I believe he got one in Pyeongchang, the last Winter Games here in 2018.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what you're referring to, but...
I don't know if it's what I'm referring to either.
This is why we brought in an Olympic expert for this week's episode. We are not.
I think it'd be super cool to see Shaun White perform his routine in the half pipe live. Like that to me is the ultimate winter sporting event that there is, in my personal opinion. Of course, that's not for everybody, but...
I love curling.
I think Shaun White... You love curling?
I think curling's the coolest
sport.
sport.
Why is that?
It's just so interesting to me. And like I said, again, being from Minnesota, we have rinks all over the place. I have one 10 minutes from my house, my hometown.
Oh, wow.
And then the men's team that won gold in Pyeongchang was amazing.
That was awesome.
But, oh man, I can't pick a favorite sport, but I just really enjoy curling.
Well, my next question is, you're going to have to, so...
Oh, man.
My next question is, what would be your favorite event?
That is so tough.
That is a tough one.
There's a lot.
There are a lot, and there's a lot of different... What are they called? Different...
Disciplines?
Yeah,
so within each sport, they have, the different availabilities of each one. So, the 100-meter or the 4x100 are different events. But then now in Tokyo, I don't know if you guys know this, they're having mixed teams, so mixed gender teams. So there'll be,
so cool.
for instance...
That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it'll be super awesome. So, I know in track and field and in swimming, I know archery's doing it. So a couple events are doing where there'll be men and women on the same discipline or same event. So
that is so cool. I'm excited.
Glad you mentioned that. That's going to be really cool to look forward to.
Absolutely.
Well, speaking about the 2020 games, from my knowledge, they added new sports that are coming into the 2020 games. Do you, by chance, know what these sports are?
So they added karate, surfing,
Cool.
roller sports, which will be like skateboarding, and then they added. Oh man, I'm forgetting a few. They added.
Breakdancing? Is that what
I know that's in 2024, but I don't remember if it's in 2020.
Did they add 3-on-3 basketball, or did I make that up?
No, I think they did.
I think they did. I know it was in the Pan American Games.
Okay.
Or it's going to be in the Pan American Games.
I think I remember hearing that 3v3 was in the 2020 Olympics. If it's not the 2021, then it's like a future one. But I believe it became an Olympic sport. We're having our master researcher going to look this up.
I'm failing you guys as your expert. I can't come up with the other
No,
ones
you've
off the
been
top of my head.
Fantastic so far, giving lots of different knowledge and perspective that I don't think Nate and I could have combined.
Oh, so it'll be baseball, softball, which was in 2008,
right?
2008,
Yeah.
but then it got taken out, so that's going to go back in.
Okay.
Karate, sport climbing, which is going to be
Ooh,
super
sport climbing.
awesome.
Huh.
Surfing, and then skateboarding.
Okay.
And then, like you mentioned, breakdancing will be in the 2024 games, and karate won't be. So it's going to be kind of moving
Okay.
around a little
Like a
bit per
free-flowing.
game. Just kind of seeing what works and kind of where we can get.
Do you think they're adapting to different cultures by like switching out sports? So like a sport's really popular in a certain area or like the host country. Do you think they'd like eliminate sports depending on that? Because it seemed like I know I'm not the expert, but it seemed like sports really didn't flip-flop. Like your sport, you stayed in the Olympics for at least a couple Olympics, and so it's kind of interesting that it's going to be in 2020 but not in the next Olympics. Do you think or are they just trying to make it more interesting for viewers?
Yeah, I think they're definitely trying to appeal to, millennials and trying to get that younger crowd interested in the games.
Okay.
And so I know there's been a lot of talk of whether like esports should be in the Olympic Games or not.
I've heard that.
And so just as far as like adding breakdancing, it definitely adds to that, younger crowd. So that may be where it is. I'm not a part of those committees by any means, so I don't really know a lot of the backstory of it. But
That's interesting.
or like sport climbing, which is something that I don't think a lot of people know about. So just getting more awareness of these newer sports.
That's really
for sure.
cool, and especially with the platform the Olympics have. I think it's really cool, and I can't wait to qualify for the Olympics with breakdancing. So look out for
support
me
this.
Yeah.
in 2024.
You guys have been looking at our Facebook channel. You saw Nate's dance moves for his #1 pump-up song, and I just don't think that's going to get you a gold medal, bud.
You're right. It's gonna get me 2 gold medals.
There
Thank
you go.
Well, we kind of are on the topic of the future of the Olympics. Is there anything that we should look forward to that we haven't mentioned that you know of for the Olympics? As far as specific cities that it's going to be hosted in, any changes?
I mean, as we kind of mentioned, the mixed relays and everything that's coming up is going to be super interesting to watch in Tokyo, with the new sports coming in. I definitely see it becoming a very inclusive environment. As, the world kind of changes, I see it adapting as best as it can. I mean, I don't know if you guys know as well, this week the IOC announced who the 2026 games were going to be awarded to.
I did not.
So when they awarded the 2024 games, they also awarded the 2028 games, which, as we all know, is in Los Angeles.
Yep.
So they awarded both games, so there was a kind of a gap whether we for the 2026 games, so they just announced that this week, and it'll be like a dual city, so it's in Milano and Cortana, which is in Italy. So.
Interesting. Is that the first time they've done a dual city hosting?
To my knowledge, yes.
Okay.
I mean, I know in when I was in Rio, they utilized a lot of like arenas, especially for the football or soccer, as us Americans call it. They utilize other cities like Brasilia or Sao Paulo, but this is like the first time it's been on the same bid city ticket, I to my knowledge.
Like officially two different cities versus just...
Which I think will become more of the norm, just since the Olympics is a financial, obstacle for a lot of cities.
Yeah.
So by able to disperse it, it helps them with, like tourism and, accommodating as much people as they can, accommodating venue spaces that maybe already are existing, and just providing like the best Olympics they can. So I think it'll be a good change.
That's really cool.
You brought up something that kind of sparked a different topic that I read about. So you mentioned kind of the financial obstacle that cities have when hosting an Olympics. So I was under the impression from an early age that a city that wins the bid to host an Olympics is super happy because they're gonna make a lot of money from tourism, from world recognition. Only for me to read later that the city actually ends up losing money from having to host an Olympics. Just from having to build all the infrastructure. Usually new stadiums are built, and it really ends up hurting the city financially. Am I accurate in saying that?
Yeah, so there's a lot of history around those facts. I think LA in '84 was the first city that turned a profit on the games, whereas you look at Montreal in I want to say '76 when they hosted, just paid off their debt in 2016.
Wow!
So it took them 30 years. So it's definitely something that is a something that cities look for. I know that Denver is the only city that has won an Olympic city bid and has given it back, actually.
Huh.
The only city that has ever done that.
That's interesting.
So
I did not know that.
yeah, so they're the only
So many facts.
just based off of finances and the politics, and a lot of times
Yeah.
the citizens don't want it. So I know that Denver did a vote to see if they wanted the games, because obviously it impacts the city a lot, and I don't think it happened. So
That's very interesting. Yeah, I saw something similar with that with Boston, because before LA became the bid city, it was Boston, and a lot of people were just kind of, they thought it'd be good because there's a lot of infrastructure already there with big sports teams. But then when the bid was submitted, there's just a lot of weird things, like a mall was the media center and stuff like that. So do you think cities sometimes and countries rush into the bid just because they know a lot of people will be coming to their country? They're willing to take the risk because it will make them look good in one way or another?
I guess a possibility that cities see the glamour of it all, and maybe
Okay.
not the behind the scenes work that might have to go
Yeah.
into it. I know a lot of people going back to Rio, go back and say a lot of these infrastructure is now barren, and that they don't have anything going on. They're kind of run down now, and what are we going to do with this and everything? So it definitely is an issue. I by no means have a solution to something like that. But
Well, you're the expert, though.
This is why we brought you on.
But yeah, I do know what you're talking about, the Boston situation.
Yeah.
And while that would have been an amazing city to host it, I definitely think it was smart for them to be maybe we can't host it just based off of our own infrastructures and everything.
That's really interesting. And
Because you're thinking you have to host the world,
the world and all
a
these
weekend.
yeah,
That's what it feels like.
and these different events, and there's a lot of water events, especially with the Summer Olympics. I think it's really interesting that they then went to LA, which I didn't know that they were the last one to turn a profit from it. And I think a lot of it's the infrastructure that they already have there. They don't have
Right.
to build a lot, and they're building a lot more stadiums down there right now anyways, for the new NFL teams down there. And so that's really interesting.
Absolutely, yeah. LA definitely has that infrastructure already, and since they've already hosted the game, they kind of have an idea of what it takes, as well as so much history. And LA is a big city, and they deal with a lot of people every day. So adding a few more may not seem like a lot. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it'll be a really interesting game, and it'll be super nice to have it back on, home soil here.
Yeah,
and
that'll be really
get
cool.
to have America experience it, especially for generations that haven't experienced it.
Right. I think our generation specifically, kind of the beginning of the millennials, Gen X, have a very little memory about the last time the games were hosted in LA.
Right, and
Yeah.
Or no memory at all.
Yeah, the last games held winter or summer was Salt Lake City, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so the last question I had was, tell us something we don't know about the Olympics. I thought the Denver tidbit
Yeah, that was really cool.
sufficed that,
I
but
don't remember what year it was.
is there anything else that the common people, us serfs, don't know? I put you on the spot
You
here.
did here. I gave up a lot of my facts I already had.
Well, do you have the secret? Because you kind of alluded to it. Do you have the secret to how LA is gonna, solve parking and traffic before 2028 to host the whole world?
I don't, but I have faith in their committee that they'll put on amazing games, and I'm super excited to see if they do any nods to the '84 games, or if they bring back athletes from those games, or what they do, since we were given it with a lot of years in advance, so be able to plan that and be able to get people behind it is going to be really interesting, and I think it'll be a really great games, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting. And I do believe, I don't know what year it is, but North America won the bid for the World Cup, and it's going to be hosted within cities throughout. So I don't know if it's after LA hosts or before, but I'm guessing infrastructure can be shared for that, because I know Denver has been mentioned as a possible location for World Cup games, and I'm guessing LA, especially if it's after the Olympics, will probably be used as well.
Yeah, I should know this off the top of my head. I consider myself a soccer fan, but I still had to look this one up. So that bid is the 2026 FIFA World Cup bid.
Okay.
They're calling it the United bid, just meaning that Canada, Mexico, and the United States would co-host or try. I don't know if there's a word for. We'll just go with co-host. They're gonna co-host the World Cup, which has really never been done before.
I think that's so cool.
I think it's a great idea. I think it helps the cities out a lot with having to have less infrastructure than catering the whole tournament. They just have to cater. I think from what I remember, it was going to be like a 60-20-20 split, so 60% for the U.S., 20% for Mexico, and 20% for Canada. Something along those lines, where the U.S. had a bigger percentage than the other two countries. And I think that makes the most sense, because the United States is going to have, we just geographically have more space
And giant football stadiums already.
Right, to host that sort of thing. So I think it's a great idea for future world events to split cities and countries that host in the same year.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think that does it for me. Do you have any other comments that you want to add?
No, I appreciate you guys letting me on your show. This has been a lot of fun, and I would love to come back if you guys have any other Olympic questions, for sure. Absolutely. We'll definitely have to have you back on. Nate, did you have anything you wanted to close with? You want to take us out?
Yeah, let's go out. Thanks again, Holly, for joining us. That was a lot of fun talking about Olympics from a real expert, because as you guys listen to, Griffin and I have a lot of gaps in our Olympic knowledge. It was great to have someone who's so knowledgeable about it. So this has been the bonus episode of Nate's Notes. If you have never listened to Nate's Notes before, we do 2 episodes a week. On Tuesdays, we release kind of a normal, longer episode where we cover a variety of topics, ranging from the NBA, Major League Baseball, NFL, even some pop culture topics as well. And then here on Thursdays, you're currently listening to the bonus episode where we dive into a deep topic. And we really liked putting that poll out on Facebook on what you guys wanted to listen to. And so we'll probably do that again in the future, so that we're giving you guys what you want to listen to. Now, if you want to be updated, you want to participate in those polls, you can follow us on social media. On Facebook, just look up Nate's Notes and give us a like there. There's a lot of great content on there already. We mentioned my dancing video. That's there. There's a video snippet of Griffin singing. There's a whole lot on there for you. We're also on Instagram, on Twitter as Notes Nates. So give us a follow there as well. And thank you again for listening to Nate's Notes.